Welcome to Donuts with a Sprinkle of Social Media, the podcast for all small business owners.
I'm your host, Sean Moat, and with 15 years experience in digital marketing, I've got a passion for small businesses and social media. Each week, we'll speak to a business owner, find out about their business and their struggles with social media. So let's dive into this week's episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Donuts with a Sprinkle of Social Media. I have got an amazing guest on today. She's my biggest supporter. She's been listening to this podcast from episode 1. Hello, Helen. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Yes, thank you for having me. It's great. I love doing podcasts. It's always nice to be guests and asked to come along. So thank you for asking me to come along.
Yeah, no, you've been my biggest supporter and inspiring me to keep going. So I'm super excited that you've come on board today's episode. So Helen is a hypnotherapist, and what inspired you to become a hypnotherapist, and how did you develop your unique approach to anxiety therapy?
Okay, so we need to go back a few years. I was a radiographer within the NHS before having children, and that was fine, not a problem. Everything was great. Number 1 child came along and went back to work part-time again. That worked fine. Number 2 child came along, not actually too kind of long after that. And that was when childcare was going to become a little bit of an issue. So I decided to take a 5-year career break from the NHS, which by the time I'd have gone back, the boys would have been in school. I would have probably, fingers crossed, been able to go on to what they used to have, maybe they still do, a family-friendly policy. Try saying that when you've had a couple of drinks. So I could have gone back, hopefully just working term times, and everything would have been hunky-dory, great, fantastic. However, I got a letter from them sort of pretty much saying you either come back now or there's no position for you. Obviously, it was a lot nicer than that, but that's basically the gist of it. So I'd been out of work for a little bit, and Gary, my partner, he is a self-employed builder, and he was doing very well. So financially, we were doing all right. And he kind of went, well, okay, if you don't want to go back, then don't. And also, it meant that I could continue to do I'm going to say the full-time care of the kids, so that he could just literally go to work and do what he needed to do, which was fine, absolutely fine. It worked well and worked great within amongst it all. But within all of this, Gary began with panic attacks in the middle of the night. He literally came downstairs one night, and I'm going to guess it was, I don't know, something like 12:30 at night, whatever it would have been. And he came downstairs and he was panicking. We didn't know that at the time. We thought, he thought he was having an asthma attack. He does struggle with asthma. So texted himself off to our local minor injuries unit, monitored up to everything, and was basically told everything was fine and that he'd experienced a panic attack. So that was sort of the first opening up to, I'm going to say, panic, anxiety, mental health in our household. And at the time, both the lads were under 3. So it was a bit of a pressure kind of going on that he needed to continue to work. I wasn't working. We've got to put food on the table for the kids, all that sort of a thing. So there was a bit of pressure going on within it. But what I did do is went off to see a hypnotherapist. And I think it was only about 3 or 4 sessions, and suddenly these panic attacks had gone. So life went back to normal. And about, give or take, about 18 months later, he began with what we look at now as generalised anxiety disorder. We didn't know that back then, but we do now. And that was a bit of a different kettle of fish. That was, a lot of anxiety for no reason. No idea what was coming about, no idea what was happening, no idea what was going on. Situations that had been fine, suddenly anxiety starting to kind of creep into it. So, that was pretty tough. So within all of this, the kids are obviously getting older and older. They get themselves off to school, and I'm like, right, what can I do with my time? I'm not a one for sitting around twiddling my thumbs. And that was when I kind of went, hypnotherapy. I wonder if I could become a hypnotherapist and I could help Gary with the anxiety and also have a little business working around the kids. Win-win. That's kind of how I became a hypnotherapist and set up my business back in 2014. But I would say back then it was more what I class as a hobby business rather than what I would class as a business. And I'm not being rude to anybody out there that is doing business as a hobby. But I think when you get into the business world a little bit more, you start to go, oh, if I do this properly, this could be better. That could be better. I could actually explore doing a little bit of this, which would make this a little bit easier. So that's what I sort of found over the last sort of 3 or 4 years. So yeah, as well as a hypnotherapist, I have a therapy called BWRT. BWRT stands for Brain Working Recursive Therapy. Now, that's my go-to, generally speaking, these days when I work with anxiety, panic, fears, and phobias, because that's what it was designed for. That's what it's amazing for. Yes, hypnotherapy is good too. Please don't get me wrong. But the BWRT, I find, gets people moving forward quicker, and I found is more permanent than just using hypnosis alone. So I generally tend to use the BWRT with clients first, and then, if need be, look at the hypnosis for the other bits and bobs that BWRT maybe hasn't quite sort of kicked out, so to speak. So that's a very quick
Yeah.
whistle-stop tour as sort of, how I got to where I am
And
now.
it's interesting, isn't it, how life throws you curveballs and how those curveballs turn into something, for myself, I was offered a 50% pay cut. And you can imagine what the answer was to that. And now, I've brought two businesses, amalgamated them into one, and enjoy life. And it is worrying, isn't it, when you start your business and you go, crap, I need money to come in. And especially in your situation where your husband wasn't very well as well, it must have been quite a challenging time.
Yeah, and I think that's what sort of added to the stress in amongst all of this. At the time, the house that we were living in, as I said to you, Gary's a builder. So the house we were living in has had a big back garden. So his plan all along was to be able to build a house in the back garden so that we could end up being mortgage free. So the pressure of doing that, going for planning on top of it all, I think that was the accumulation that kind of ended up with sort of anxiety and panic kind of in our world. At the time, you don't see it, you don't realize it, you don't understand what's kind of happening, what's kind of going on. And again, with the training that I've done, particularly in the BWRT, but other bits and bobs as well, has really helped me to kind of look back and go, I wonder if that contributed to it. Oh, I bet that didn't help. Oh, yeah, that probably didn't help too much either. But when you're in it, you can't see it and you aren't aware of it. You just, but dare I say it, sometimes in some situations, you're just existing because that's all you need to do just to get through the day.
And sometimes it's hard to like you say, to see those things when you're actually dealing with it day to day. And it's not until you look back and go, and I suppose it's like in business, isn't it? You sometimes in business you make mistakes, and it's not until you've made those mistakes that you can look back and go, yeah, I shouldn't have done that, or yeah, that's why that didn't work, or so yeah, it's interesting.
And it's that learning from those mistakes as well, isn't it, in business particularly? It's that going, okay, so that didn't quite pan out. Why didn't it pan out? Can I do something different? Is there something I need to do different? Or is that just something that just is never going to work? And there's a big thing in the world, but particularly I think in sort of small business owners, is that fear of failure. That fear of, oh my goodness me, what if it doesn't pan out? But actually, that fear of failure can really stop people and keep people.
Yeah, I think so. I think I look back to mine. I think I jumped into it, and I did have that fear of like, what if I don't get anyone? But you get your first client, and then you start building your reputation, and you get more clients, and and then you look back and go, this is the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
I work when I want, everything. You fit thing. Going to sports day if I want to go to sports day, if I want to go to something at the school for the kids. Like I run the football club for the school on a Monday afternoon at 3:30. So I finish work at 2:30. It's brilliant.
That flexibility is great.
Yeah. So as you would imagine, I've been a bit of a stalker for this podcast. So a couple of questions. So I was reading through your website. You've got the concept of the 3 C's: calm, control, and confidence. How does that work? Explain a little bit
Calm, control, and confident. I think so. Anxiety makes you feel completely out of control. It makes you feel definitely not calm at all. Anxiety is kind of, in a sense, the opposite. And anxiety squashes people's confidence as well. So when you can kind of get rid of the anxiety, the calmness comes through, confidence comes through, and that sense of control begins to come back. So that's often what anxiety takes away from people. So if you can give them that back by removing the unwanted anxiety, then life flows. I always say to
Yeah.
people, if you feel calm, you can deal with pretty much anything in life, even when you've got those horrendous situations going on. If you've got a sense of calmness going on, that helps you to use your logical brain a lot more than that emotional brain. When emotional brain takes over, logical day-to-day thinking brain gets kicked out the window. So if you're in a situation where you need that logic to navigate you through something and anxiety is taking over, then that is a very difficult situation to be in to try and get yourself where you want to get to.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if
I
it's
should
something small or something big.
I should have called you last week, Helen. I was stress galore. So as you know, my partner's got a cleaning company, and I've been managing the installation of our laundry equipment. So I've had electricians, plumbers, and then the installation. And I've been. I was so glad by last Friday when they all got fitted in. But you're right. It's sometimes that calm approach, but you don't. Sometimes it's hard, isn't it? You're just like, oh, geez, I've got this to do, and yeah, it's hard, but yeah, it makes sense what you're saying. You also do a online program, don't you? I was seeing called Calm Mind, Calm Body.
Yeah, that's a lot of that is the BWRT sort of basis. I've sort of taken that and adjusted it and tweaked it onto an online course that people can take themselves through. And it's one of those situations where going through it once might be enough, but depending on what's going on, people can go back to it. So you go through the lessons, the first 2 or 3. Gosh, it's a little bit since I've had a look at that. That's really terrible of me. But first, it's just the sort of the basics, and then I think it's probably the last couple of lessons that you can just kind of go back to whenever and whenever needed, sort of a thing. And we all know with anxiety and panic that it varies from person to person. So if it's what we refer to as a bit more of a simple fear, like something like a fear of spiders, for example, that can get rid of, really, really quickly. But if someone's feeling social anxiety, for example, that might be something that takes a little bit more kind of work. But the way I work with people is we work on what causes them the biggest, what I call yuck. I think yuck is a brilliant descriptive word for an umbrella for all the yucky feelings that anxiety can kind of create within us. We start on the biggest yuck, which some people can start to go, oh my God, that sounds a bit scary, that sounds a bit horrible. But really, starting with the biggest yuck, it helps knock out the smaller ones below it. So it's a little bit like a domino effect. You get the biggest, horriblest, yuckiest, yucky anxiety, panicky, provoking situations or scenarios, thoughts, feelings, whatever they are. You work on that and it knocks out a lot of the lower ones beneath it. So a lot of situations I'll say to people, right, we'll work at this. Let's get this sorted. Report back, tell me how things are, tell me what's happened, tell me what's better, because that might be better, but there might be something over there that isn't quite as good as you want it to be. And I often sort of say to people, so there could be 5 things that people need to work on. And working on number 1 can help number 2. So we end up jumping straight to number 3 after that. Working on number 3 can help 4 and 5. So what you kind of might go, there's 5 things that we need to look at, can sometimes be condensed down to maybe 2 or 3 or 4 sort of thing. So it depends on sort of what's happening, what's kind of going on for people. And just very quickly as well, I work a lot with the fear of flying. And I worked with one gentleman's fear of flying. And within the conversation around holidays and all that sort of a thing, I realised he was absolutely petrified of cockroaches. The look on his face was like real screwy up, when a cockroach was mentioned, I'm like, not keen on cockroaches. I went, no, I can't stand them. They're horrible things. So I took him through the fear of flying protocol. And lo and behold, cockroach fee disappeared as well. So this is kind of how, well, one reason why I love using it, but how it can have positive knock-on effects at other different sort of parts of people's lives as well. So yeah, the more calm you feel, the more your logical brain gets a chance to work rather than the emotional brain taking over. And like you said, it's not always easy. And one reason why it isn't easy, because your emotional brain is your survival brain. It's all within the same bit. And when something is a threat to your survival, that emotional brain is going to take over very, very quickly. And it's going to do whatever it can to keep you alive. So if you're trying to think logically in those moments when the emotional brain is taking over, that logic doesn't get much of a look in.
Yeah. And my yuck, and you've helped me with this, is my yuck has been my I talked about doing a podcast, and my emotional brain was going to go, oh, you'll be rubbish at it, don't do it. So I never did it. And then I thought, do you know what, I'm just going to have a go. And then you've been so supportive. And it was something you said the other week when we were on our Circle Network meeting, and you said, oh, the confidence through listening through the episodes, how you feel, first episode you could tell that you were nervous, and you're getting more and more confident. And yeah, you're right, your emotional brain stops you sometimes doing the stuff that you really want to do. And I suppose, like fear of flying, you want to go on holiday, but you won't go on holiday because you're scared of flying.
And I think as well with that, it doesn't just ripple out. So we just come back to the fear of flying. That's not just your holiday that it's spoiling. If you've got a family, they probably don't get to go away as well. But the same in a business. If you hadn't have stepped out of that comfort zone of yours and gone, right, I'm gonna go for this podcast, I'm gonna do it. You wouldn't be where you are now with the amount of series that you've done. But also, you are helping people. So you're helping me to get in front of a different audience. Everybody you've spoken to that you've helped, and everybody that listens, you will be helping in some way as well. So it's that ripple effect out that we don't often sort of appreciate around the things that we do. And we don't always get the feedback from people as well to tell us these things.
No, and I think that's what, so for those who are wondering how I know Helen, because I'm up in sunny Scotland, as I tell Helen every week, the true north, not the north that Helen's in. I'm in the true north. So we're a part of a great networking organisation called Circle Networks. I joined only 4 months ago. And yeah, Helen has been one of my biggest supporters. I laughed, didn't I, the other week when we were in one of the breakout rooms, and I said, I think you're going to become my publicist, because you were telling me to remind this of, I can't remember who we were speaking to, but you were reminding me to tell them, oh, don't forget this and that. And it's just a great networking organisation, isn't it?
Yes, it absolutely is. And I love the fact that there is that support within it. And you're right, you can kind of go, hang on a minute, I'm in a room with you. You haven't talked about X, and I know you do that. Because sometimes we're not always very good at blowing our own trumpet.
Yeah.
It's not something that we're kind of sort of taught to do throughout life. And I just think of sort of going back to school, you kind of sort of, in some situations, sort of push down a little bit. And then you get to the years, and I don't even think they do it this day and age, to be honest. I don't think my kids have done it. But you get to sort of what would be the equivalent of probably year 10 and 11 these days, and you have to write your CV. And suddenly you've kind of been told all along not to sort of tell people how good you are. And then suddenly you kind of go, and actually now you've got to forget everything that we've said there, and you've got to absolutely blow your trumpet here because of the job that you want, and you're like, and it's a hard one. And yeah, and a one that a lot of us don't do very well sometimes.
Yeah. So what's some of the misconceptions of hypnotherapy that maybe myth bust, that people think, oh, it's hairy fairy, or it's never going to work? I wonder what some of those, I suppose, what you could maybe myth bust and tell them that it's not true.
It's one of those typical ones. You're not going to make me cluck like a chicken, are you? All those sorts of things. And I say to people, there's a difference. You've got hypnosis. Hypnosis can be used keep it really simple in sort of two different ways. It can be used for entertainment and it can be used for therapy. I use hypnosis for therapy, and there are some amazing people that use it for entertainment. And I know there's some people out there that kind of go, well, does that not make hypnosis look a bit silly and this and that and the other? But to me, it's that, the saying is there's no such thing as bad advertising, or whatever the kind of word is. I think that's not quite right, but you know what I'm saying. And I think anything that puts it into people's minds is a good thing. But as I said, there is a difference between the entertainment side of things and the therapy side of things. And a lot of those that do the entertainment side of things do therapy as well. So they kind of have that ability to do both. But yeah, I think that's one of the biggest myths that you kind of get. And it's that, will you put me in trance and I'll never ever get out of it? Well, even if I was to put you in, I don't really like the word trance, but people use it, to put you in a trance. If I walked out the room and left you there, at some point somewhere, you would come back round. It's a little bit like if you have a nap in an afternoon. You could sleep for 5 minutes, you could sleep for an hour, you could sleep for 2 hours, whatever it would be. You'll eventually come back round. Not saying that hypnosis is sleep, but hypnosis quite simply is deep relaxation. And when you use hypnosis to relax the conscious mind and tap into the subconscious mind, or depending on what word you actually, I often use the logical brain, bypass the logical brain, tap into the old emotional brain. That's what you're doing. You're just bypassing the logic part of our brain. Now, a logic can sometimes get in our way. And even with business owners, just think of the last time, sorry, excuse me. Just think of the last time you were sat in front of your desk and you're really trying to write a post. And I know you do social media bits and bobs. You're really trying really hard to write a post. You've got something that you want to write about, but you just can't work out how to put it across. So you walk away, you go and do something else. You might go out into the garden, or you might have a shower or something, or do some really mundane tasks like hoovering. Boom, it's there. Suddenly you're like, why didn't I think of that before? Because you've kind of tapped back into that emotional brain. You've sort of just slotted into it, and you've allowed it to come through and just kind of be. And that's the thing with the world of small businesses. If you need your ideas, do something different. Step away. Get out in nature. Do what you like to do. Or it might be as simple as gaming, or watching TV, whatever it is that allows you to just kind of zone out a bit. Do it.
And it's funny how you say, it's about the relaxed mind. I know, I used to have a notepad, but obviously I'm in technology. So I wake up in the middle of the night with ideas. Yeah. And I think it's because I'm so relaxed. And I have to write them down, because I feel that I'm suffering from dementia sometimes, because I struggle to remember what I did yesterday. So I have to write it down straight away. But a lot of my great ideas of things I want to do in my business come to me at wacky times of the night. And I'll wake up and I go, right, I'm going to write that down, or put it into my notes. So it is how you talk about how your mind, I suppose your emotional mind's cut off, isn't it? And your actual brains, your actual brain and mind's working.
Yeah, it's not too busy being distracted by whatever it is. We all know the more we force something, the harder it is. But also, just coming back to the sleep thing as well. When we're asleep, that's a time when our brain is processing information. So particularly what I refer to as our emotional or old brain, depending on sort of what I'm talking about. But when we're asleep, as I said, it's processing information. And this is why sometimes dreams can be unbelievably weird, because the old brain, it doesn't have a sense of time and it doesn't have any logic. And when it doesn't have any logic, it can sometimes put things together that are extremely random. And a dream that I often share with people is just before Christmas, I think it was, I had a dream about an octopus driving a steam train. Now, we know that just non-exists. That's never, ever going to happen. But that's that proof that our brain is just processing information. It doesn't have that logical ability. But I think within amongst all of that, this is where the ideas can come through. Some of them can be completely wacky and we go, where on earth did that come from? That's never going to work. But sometimes we get those real nuggets because, as I said, that brain's just having a chance to just process information.
Yeah. I was chuckling in my head when you said about, when you're writing a post and you're struggling. I just use ChatGPT.
Oh, yes.
I won't walk away.
Technology is amazing, isn't it? And how you can use it to your ability with these things, really use it to help and support and aid you. Yeah, it is. And we both know Gillian Schofield from Circle Networks, and I'm part of her membership, and she's brilliant for hits and tips on how to use it to really kind of, use it as a tool, not as something to replace you. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, getting onto AI, I think a lot of people worry that it's going to take people's jobs. But AI is only as good as what you put in it. So with ChatGPT, the prompts that you put in and it's only as the output you get is, I suppose it's a bit like what about your business, isn't it? The input you put into the business is the best, if you put 100% in, you're going to get 100% out. And ChatGPT is very similar, that if the quality you put in is the quality you get out. So it's never going to take people's job. Well, I don't think it's going to take my job yet. It's not that good.
I know someone sort of likened it to when Canva came out. I mean, I use Canva quite a lot, and how a lot of people were then really worried and go, "Oh my goodness me, oh my goodness, I'm going to lose. Nobody's going to come to me, or these graphic designers and all these sorts of bits and bobs." Where actually, I would imagine that people are using it from a very different way. They're using it to help enhance their images, not actually going to it and going, no, don't get me wrong, some people will, but I need a logo, I need this. So you're always going to need your experts, always.
Yeah. Canva used to be a marketer's secret tool, and then it somehow got out into the big bad world, and everyone knows about it now.
Yeah.
But within my business, I use Canva on a daily basis. But it's about, it's changed. Canva's a great tool for small business owners, and I encourage anyone who's listening, if you haven't looked at Canva, you should, because it can really help you if you're, in a position that you can't afford to outsource, or you don't want to outsource to someone like myself. It's a great tool to be able to create quality, branded, consistent posts. But the technology with Canva is getting even more and more better. So some people will be using it on a very basic level, where I'm probably using some of the more of the built-in technology that's coming. But yeah, Canva is for any small business owner is a tool that they should definitely have in their toolbox, isn't it?
I absolutely agree with that one. I don't know where I would be or what I would do without Canva, to be honest. I do use it quite a bit, like you said, like a lot of small businesses do.
Yeah. And your social media, how do you find your social media? Is that the channel that you're using to connect with potential customers, or where are you trying to find new clients, I suppose?
I think it's a funny little world in a sense, for people in my world, sometimes with social media, not always, but sometimes with social media, because I think with some of the content that I pop out there, it isn't necessarily people are going to engage in it, i.e. the likes and the comments and things. So I keep going and I keep going with it, because, you might be out and about and somebody go, "Oh, I've seen you on such and such." And you go, "I've never come across you before. I haven't seen you like anything or comment on anything." And I said, and I think that's a lot because of the world that I'm in. Not everybody is as open talking about mental health, particularly anxiety. So for me, it can be sometimes hard to gauge exactly what's the word? How good it is for me. That's not maybe quite the right word, but does that sort of make sense? A lot of people, I'm assuming in your words, Sean, they'll follow the analytics. They'll see what posts are working good, what posts aren't working good, and I'm not the techie person to be able to go into the ins and outs of it. But as I said, it's not possibly as easy, because my hope is that people read them but don't always necessarily interact.
I have a friend up here, Magula Terrell, and she's an author, and I'm helping her with her social media at the moment. And she's an author and specializes in dementia and Alzheimer's. So again, it's a very difficult subject to even try and, even if you were to try to target paid advertising, and we tried a little bit of paid advertising. It's very hard, and she was getting a little bit about, oh, I've got no likes, no one's commenting, and I said, it's not if I put a picture of a cat up, I said I could probably get you 100 likes, a cat wearing a hat or something, I could get you 100 likes and loads of shares, and social media is not all about cats. I don't think that's the way to go forward. But it's a subject that isn't encouraging people to hit the like button or comment, because again, it's quite a personal subject. So people aren't going to comment in the big bad world of oh yeah, that's affected me and this is why So it's really hard, and I guess if I was to look at your analytics, it would be very hard to say that post has worked really well. That I think in your case and in the case of Maggie, it's all about brand awareness and just keeping that consistency out there, that you're there and that people will come to you when they're in there, that they need your help. So yeah, social media can be in your line of work very difficult.
Yeah, and I think, like you said as well, it's that being in the forefront of someone's mind as well when someone mentions something. So, like you were just saying about sort of the dementia and bits and bobs, if someone was to mention to a friend dementia, oh, I saw that post, that lady's written a really good book. Oh, let me go find it for you. I know this person will probably do, and I think a lot of it is possibly that sort of stuff as well. It's being at the forefront of people's minds, so that when someone mentions something, you're there. And we mentioned circle networks a moment ago as well, and that's what I like about the networking side of things as well. I've been in circle networks just over a year now, and I find that people in circle networks will tag me in posts because something's been mentioned, whether it's a fear, whether it's anxiety. And also there was someone that came into the group a little bit ago, into the Slack group that we have, which I know you're aware of, and asked about, I've got a friend that's struggling with anxiety. And mine was the first name that kind of, good old Louise Purvis is in there, and she's great. And she, and I think because people associate me as being able to help with anxiety, that's it as well. And I think for me, networking has been brilliant because it's really helped me get in front of people in a speaky way. I know, don't get me wrong, we can do videos and all that sort of thing. Absolutely, of course we can with social media, yeah. But when you get that interaction with somebody and someone asks a question, you can go, yeah, well, that happens because this is what's going on. And if they did this or that, or I could help with this, that's that connection that really helps. And also, if you've worked with people within that setting, and I have been lucky enough to work with some people in circles, and they are brilliant at coming forward and going, yep, she helped me with this. And that is also brilliant because it's that know, like, and trust that builds. So I think networking is one of the main areas for me moving forward. Not the be all and end all. Social media is definitely, like you said, being there for the brand awareness, so that I'm there in the forefront of people's minds if anybody was to sort of mention something somewhere along the way. And yes, they're probably my two sort of main sort of paths, channels to kind of.
Yeah, and it's like I remember when I started my career in the world of advertising. So I used to work for a local newspaper, and I used to account manage people's paper advertising, and that was before social media got big. And people would get het up, go, well, how do I know that's working? And I go, but it's all about being, if you're top of mind awareness, if you're not in that top three, if I say sofas, everyone's going to think DFS.
Yeah.
Because they're, or supermarket, Tesco's, or Asda's, they're the top three, they're in the top three because they're consistently advertising, and it's building that brand awareness. And I think, like you say, with the networking, because we're all networking together and we probably see the same faces all the time. And it's just, again, oh, you should go and speak to Helen, or you should go and speak to Sean. And it's sometimes unquantifiable. But that was a big word for me. I don't usually use big words like that.
Yeah, like
Especially on a
that.
Wednesday. But you know what I mean? It's, you sometimes can't, people will say, oh, all my work comes from word of mouth. And I go, well, it might come from word of mouth, but it might be because someone's seen your social media post that they've mentioned it to someone else. So yes, you might say that all your work comes from word of mouth, but there's something that's led them to recommend you or something. So yeah, it's interesting, this world of marketing. And as a business owner, it's hard, isn't it? Because you've got every hat, you have to wear every single hat, and you're like me, a solo entrepreneur, so you have to wear all these hats, and yeah, some of them I hate wearing.
You're right, true. We do have to wear lots of different hats, but I think as well, and I know I've already mentioned circle networks, as I know we'll keep doing, but it's coming back, that community behind you, because it can be an extremely lonely place to sort of be.
Yeah.
And we need that ability to jump in sometimes and go, oh, this isn't working. Oh, what do I do for this? This has happened. Does anybody know anybody in this world? And I think that's that ability as well, to have something somewhere that you can. Don't get me wrong, social media can be brilliant in some situations. You jump on social media, you go, who can help me with what's up? And boom, you get bombarded by loads of information. But that can be too much. And also, sometimes those recommendations aren't from people that you know that well. But again, we're back to having that network of people, that connection, that community around you, your tribe around you, is really, really, really important, I believe. And I think,
sorry, I was just going to jump in there and go, with circle networks, as I talk about it on every episode because I love it so much. Friendship fuels business. That's the tagline. It truly does do that. The ethos and everything, and like yourself, Ellen, I would have never met you, and I think I've got a friend there, and I think everyone within circle networks, we are all friends. And in day-to-day life, if you had a struggle in your life, you would reach out to one of your friends, and that's purely what you're doing in circle networks. You're reaching out to your friend to ask them advice. And and like you say, in circle networks, yes, there is other people that do the same, in the same sector. I've got really good friend Liz Graney. Is on our next episode, and she runs a social media and marketing agency, but we're really good friends. And I can pick up the phone and go, I'm thinking of doing this, and she'll go, no, don't do that, do it this way. And one of those ones was around Maggie, was, I want to do some paid advertising. What would you do? How would you target Alzheimer's and dementia? Because obviously you can't just type in target people whose families suffer from dementia. There purely isn't a target like that. So it would be able to pick up the phone to people you've built friendship with, that can help you answer or guide you into making the right decision. And that's why I love circle networks.
It's having someone looking from the outside looking in. Because when we're in it, you, as I often say, I use that word, you can't see the wood for the trees. You might have what you think is the best idea in the world, but you need to run it past someone that's outside looking in, that can go, actually, hello, that's a good idea. Oh, God, that sounds amazing. Yes, you must do that. Depending on sort of what it is. But yeah, we need communities in this world. I believe that mental health has gone downhill as communities have kind of gone downhill as well, as terrible as that sort of sounds. We are social beings. Doesn't matter how social or unsocial you think you are, we are social beings, and we need that contact with other people for survival, really. So yeah, community is really important.
Yeah, definitely. So anyone who's wanting to find out more about Helen, I've I do apologise, Helen. I usually shove this up at least a couple of times during our thing. The website is hypnotherapy-cumbria.co.uk. So head over to there. You'll find all about the wonderful Helen. Before we go, Helen, anything on the future? What's happening? Have you got any plans on the future? Anything new coming out? Or
So I have a huge dream, but I won't go into that too much because I think it'll probably take another podcast to maybe talk about that. But my aim is to create a community. As I was just talking about lacking of community, a community that supports parents who live with anxious teens, stroke young adults, because as I've said as we started off, I got into this world through Gary, my partner's struggles with anxiety and panic. Our eldest, who is going to be coming up 18 this weekend, he's had a couple of bouts of anxiety throughout his life. So we've had a fair chunk of anxiety moments, can I say, in our household. And I know what it's like to kind of struggle with that. I know what it can be like for parents that just don't have that understanding around it. I learned and have learned a hell of a lot. So yeah, that's my kind of next project, as I said, to create a space, a community for parents who live with anxious teens, stroke young adults. So yeah, watch this space.
brilliant. I can't wait to see you launch that, and I know whatever you do will be amazing. Helen, thank you very much for joining me. You now got to listen to your own voice on this episode.
Horrible bit, isn't it, when you listen to yourself?
Yes, I know. I thank you very much for joining us. So those listening, go and check out Helen and everything she does. And our next episode, as I said a few moments ago, I've got Liz Graney from Out of the Village. She is my friend in marketing. So that's going to be an interesting one. So tune in to the next episode. And yeah, thanks very much, Helen.
Thank you for having me, and definitely tune in to listen to Liz because she's amazing.
Thank you.